Hey, welcome to Planet Hex. I'm Andrew Horn. This is a show where I talk about a lot of retro media, physical media, VHS tapes, music, comics, the writing life, and a bunch of other stuff besides. I like to go and look around eBay and Facebook Marketplace for cool things like VHS tapes or action figures, merchandise, that sort of thing. Today, I'm going to talk you through some of the things I've been taking in recently. I did some pickups from the previous video. I've revisited those now and some other stuff. And then later on, we're going to take a look at a couple of stories that I found on the internet, which while researching for vhsatemybrain to come to light, and one that just came up a few days ago. So take a look at those, all pertaining to VHS, my favourite format as well. I think that's a bit of a given that I'm quite fond of VHS by now. So today we've been in town. It's Sunday when I'm recording this. I've been in town with my wife and kids, and we went to some nice places, had lunch out, and it's all been very nice and summery. Hung out in Market Square watching people skating and things like that, so that was cool. But yeah, we went to Waterstones, and I love going to Waterstones. We went up to the top floor on Waterstones, me and the boys, to check out their graphic novels and manga. According to the lady there that served us when we bought a couple of things there today, it's the largest manga and graphic novel and merchandise and gaming section at any Waterstones branch ever, and it's pretty cool. Take a look. So that was fun there. Of course, once we'd made some purchases, we had to go and relax in the coffee shop. There was cake and drinks and stuff, and it was very civilized. It was very civilized. But what I must say there is that I went to the gents' toilet, as people do, and you could tell you were in Waterstones because the graffiti on the inside of it was really civilized. It was like the most civilized graffiti I've ever seen. A couple of pickups since we last spoke. So on the VHS front, Phantasm 3. I don't think I put this in the previous video. This was from that weird shop last week, and we had a great time. And it's really cool to revisit that. Really enjoyed that all over again. I love the Phantasm movies, the blend of horror and sci-fi, and Angus Scrimm as the tall man. It's just the best. And I almost called him the tall guy then, but that was Jeff Goldblum, and that's a very different thing. I've been hankering for a certain type of Marvel Comics release. I used to work in a comic shop from 2000 to 2009, and something that always sold really well, was Essentials, Marvel's Essentials, which were budget graphic novels, very, very thick, of classic comics, black and white, on kind of low-grade paper, but you could read the titles. So I picked myself up this week, and I'm thoroughly enjoying Marvel Essentials Ghost Rider Volume 2. It's very 70s. It's full of Jim Shooter and Don Heck and people. I'm about 150 pages into it or so far, and it's glorious. The art is very much of its time. The storytelling is very much of its time, but it is so satisfying. Really enjoying that. Today I picked up, Tabletop Gaming Magazine. I do like a tabletop game now and again, and I'm always quite inspired, and there's always some additions to my wish list go on whenever I've had a look at this, and that's well worth doing. So revisits, also on VHS, I've revisited Digital Man. I had revisited it a few months ago on YouTube. I found it on YouTube, but I've always wanted a physical copy of this. I don't think I ever had one. I've rented it a few times back in the day, but this is as of its time as it gets in terms of that sort of mid to late 90s sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, dystopian thing. I think they've reused a lot of costumes here from things like Apex. If you see there, I think there's some reused weapons and some reused costumes and stuff from Apex. But yeah, it's Digital Man. It's Matthias Hughes in a big robot suit with a big gun blowing stuff up. in a desert. There were loads of these types of films out at the time, and I really loved them back then. I rented so many of them. So I revisited some stuff this week that you saw me pick up recently. I've revisited Adventures in Babysitting. This is way better than I remember it being. I'm amazed as well. It has been reclassified from a 15 down to a 12, and apart from the swearing in the subway scene, it totally is a 12. You know, so it's still really funny. It's really exciting. The effects, there are some effect sequences in it which that are intended to have a sense of peril about them, and they hold up really well. So that was cool. I revisited. Yes, it's cheesy, but I love cheesy stuff. I revisited Mannequin, and apart from the opening scene in the distant past before Kim Cattrall's character gets frozen in time, apart from that really dodgy opening, this holds up pretty well too. There are some nice effects shots in it, like where the plastic hand comes to life and you can see it's just makeup on the hand. But yeah, as weird and unsettling as this can be, it holds up really well. Hollywood is still the best character by far, so I really enjoyed rewatching that. Rewatched Caddyshack. After reading Wild and Crazy Guys about it in the book, I wanted to revisit this, so I found one of the I found DVD of it cheap on Amazon, and yeah, it's one of those early DVD releases with the cardboard sleeve that clicks around. But that holds up really well, and I love the whole thing with the gopher, because it's clearly a puppet. It adds this little surreal edge to an already quite raucous comedy. Yeah, it's got Rodney Dangerfield in it doing Rodney Dangerfield things, and it is very much of its time, but it's fun and it holds up well, and I did laugh out loud a few times with that. On a different note there, I revisited 13 Ghosts. By God, this holds up really well. Yes, some of the CGI is dated and that sort of thing, but some of the editing style is very, very much of its time, but this is so good. It really holds up well. The sense of tension just builds and builds and builds. Really good. If you haven't watched 13 Ghosts, or if you've not watched it in a long time, I really recommend checking it out again. It's been many years since I've seen it, and I'm really glad I revisited this. This was from a charity shop, and I was so pleased that I sat down and popped this in the player, because this is just a great fun movie. It's not overly gory. There is gore, there's some horror scenes in it. There's the great scene with the glass, the guy being cut in half, which is really fun. But it is just really tense and exciting, and it's got Matthew Lillard in it, and I like Matthew Lillard. And the last one I've been revisiting is House of a Thousand Corpses, the Rob Zombie movie. Yeah, come on, every horror fan is aware of House of a Thousand Corpses. Does it hold up? Yeah, it holds up pretty well. You can see it's got some rough edges because of it being one of his early movies. It does have some rough edges, but it totally has that grindhouse 70s feel to it, and I'm all for that. I'm all about that, the grimy, grungy, sort of scratched, rough around the edges feel of that. But yes, it's been really fun revisiting these things. Now, what have I found to talk about over on the internet? So if I just magically switch from this position to this position, we can go and check them out. So let's take a look at what I found here. These are just some of the things I found while researching for VHS-themed 2, and I thought these may be of interest. So over on faroutmagazine.co.uk, I found a bunch of stuff on there about VHS, which has been interesting. The 10 best-selling VHS tapes of all time. So this is from last November. It's not one I'd seen previously, but while researching for this book, I was really pleased to see this come to light. So what was on this list? So let's take a look. So of course there's going to be some Disney on here. So The Lion King at 32 million copies is listed here as the biggest selling VHS of all time. Aladdin, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Titanic at 25 million copies, Jurassic Park at 24 million, Beauty and the Beast, Independence Day, Toy Story, Pocahontas and Cinderella. So a little bit predictable there, because Disney tapes are so ubiquitous, I'll say that, with so many families, young fans, kids love them, and then there's the older fans, there's the adult fans that obsessively collect these things and appreciate them for many years. So I sort of understand why that's why is that way? The 10 best-selling VHS tapes is full of Disney stuff, and the obvious ones like Titanic and Jurassic Park. But I think it'd be a very different story today if we went at like the best-selling DVDs or Blu-rays or most streamed things ever. I think it would be a very different story now, and I think that Disney content would have definitely slipped down there. Something that came up from a month ago was this, which is over on Bloody Disgusting. Vice Press brings back Dario Argento's classic Suspiria back to VHS. Look at this. That is such a gorgeous addition. So Vice Press are over here in the UK, and it's a collection of very, very talented artists and creators, and their appreciation for classic stuff spills over, recreating movie posters from other eras and just giving them a fresh look, a fresh take on them. So this is Vice Press Home Video Edition of Suspiria. That is so cool. So released under license and in collaboration with Dario Argento and Image Industries. Come in 2 editions, both featuring art by Eisner Award-winning illustrator John J. Pearson. This is so cool. So the slipcase edition, it's cover art with him with screen printed design, a tape taken from the design on the floor from the Volk dance scene. Limit to 500 copies. There you can see it's got the actual design from the dance scene as a print on the tape. That is so beautiful. I've not really seen many tapes that have had stuff printed on them before. I've seen multicolored tapes and things like that, but not really stuff that's had something specific from the movie put on there. That's really cool. So this was initially made available at the Vice Press Open House Poster Convention in Sheffield, which took place on June the 8th, which I couldn't get to, so my ankle, so that was frustrating. So it was established by artist Matt Ferguson, who you may be aware of from working on things for Disney and Marvel and Amblin and all kinds of people. What you may not be aware of is I used to work with Matt in the comic shop many years ago, and I just want to say to Matt, he's one of the nicest people you will ever meet. What a pleasure of a person to stand around in a comic shop with. I'm so pleased that this has continued to be such a huge thing, and he continues to make stuff like this. It's really cool. There are some really cool things available from Vice Press. Do check this out if you are a fan, see if it's still available, but just appreciate that for what it is. Look at that print on that tape. That is so cool, especially with there being so many editions of Suspiria out there, you know, and there's the remake as well with Dakota Johnson in it. There's so many versions of this. There's there's VHS, there's different Blu-ray versions, there's different cuts and all kinds of stuff like that. It's really cool to see something different, and that is certainly different. I mean, that's a work of art in itself, so do check that one out. The next thing I found to mention, oh, crikey, so you can see I hadn't clicked on all this stuff before I started recording. There is a review here of a thrilling horror novel that plays with form. This is from the Book Riot website, which is really cool. This is from June 17th, so it's just a few days ago. And I thought this sounded like a really good idea. It's called Horror Movie. It's by Paul Tremblay, and it takes the reader through 2 timelines, as mentioned here, about a group of filmmakers making a horror movie, and then 3 decades later, a reboot is in the work, and it follows that timeline as well. And I like the idea of it playing with form like that, playing with structure, and playing with the parts of the scene that we remember, and like the VHS era from then and the reboot era from now. So I am going to check this out. So maybe one for you to check out too. I'm going to check out some more reviews of it and see what they say, and I may well check this out. I think that sounds like a really good idea, especially with the 2 timelines. It reminds me of I don't know, it reminds me of things like the Fear Street movies that came that were made based on the R.L. Stine novels and stuff like that. Things that play with a retro element and put it into a modern perspective as well. I think it's a really good idea and a really good way of getting some classic sort of horror style stuff into a modern setting, without relying on modern trappings of horror movies, you know, jump scares and such like. So I'm going to check that out as well. So I found an interesting one here which was quite nostalgic, but you have to become a Quietus subscriber. Sorry, I didn't realise this was going to a paywall. If you can find this article in full anywhere, do check it out. Low Culture essay, Will Burns on 90s skate VHS soundtracks. So there was a big scene for skate videos back in the 90s, and a lot of them had lots of punk bands on, like Fat Records, artists and Epitaph and things like that. Lots of people like NoFX and that sort of ilk of band. And I can see that being a nostalgic thing with the skateboarding part of it and the music capturing a certain era. Do check that out, and do check some of those tapes out if you can. There are a bunch of them on YouTube. Now, this next one, I'm going to skip over the rest of that because I don't have the paywall thing. I would not normally go to this website because it's the Sun, and I'm not a fan of the Sun. But this was quite interesting. There is a video over on YouTube of a VHS store that's been uncovered. This was April this year. This was talked about, so many of you will have seen this by now, but if not, do check this out. Incredible Amanda VHS store left frozen in time for 20 years after owner died. It's throwback to the world before Netflix, and there's a lot to love in this. It's really nice to see this stuff survived. So it does slightly annoy me. It's like, imagine having to go to a physical store instead of clicking on a tab on your computer. It's not that far away in the past. It's still in living memory. So, remind me where it was. I've forgotten where it was. North Carolina, there we go. North Carolina in the US. And this was filmed, the exploration of this was filmed by an urban explorer, and it had been untouched for 20 years. The abandoned VHS store was left frozen in time for almost 20 years. So you can see it's full of, that's DVDs. So there's loads of DVDs, and there's racks of VHS. You can pick any of these out. I see Sergeant Bilko there, Amos and Andy. I mean, it does make me wonder what treasures are in there, if there's like a load of rare horror or sci-fi or anything like that. But I just think it's going to be, I see Biodome, it's going to be mainly things that people would rent a lot. So it's going to be a lot of the usual suspects in there, but it's really cool that they're still there untouched. Sad that the owner passed away without being able to close up properly or anything like that, but I think this is a really really interesting thing. Let's have a look at these photos. There's the racks there. Oh, look how orderly that is. That's been put together with a lot of love and a lot of there's figures on the walls. It's such a shame. I would love to have a rummage through this. What are these mugs on here? These like character mugs? Yeah, there's a lot of character in there. Oh, you can see on the wall. I thought those were movie posters, but those are shots from things going on in the store. That guy's life is there. You can see Santa visits and stuff there. There's fishing rods and mugs and things like that, but there's a load of VHS tapes. And that's the kids section. I can see lots of anime and cartoons and things there. That is so cool. It's fascinating that it was captured like this and just frozen in time. Look at all those photos. There's an entire life story told in those photos. Much like I often argue in each version of VHS-8mybrain that these things are markers along the way. This store is filled with markers throughout people's lives. Imagine the parts of the community that have been captured in that. That's lovely. A bunch of like homewares and stuff there as well. How odd. What a great find. What's on those racks? Yeah, there's loads of like family movies and things on there, but man, that's how it was. That is literally the moment that it closed at the last time. Imagine finishing up that day, you know, putting together your totals for the day and not realizing that would be the last time you do it, and that's how the store would remain for 20 years. That is incredible. Rest in peace, dude. Rest in peace, man. So the last two things I've got here. Den of Geek published a piece in February. What was your most watched VHS tape? and they'd ask people what was the most watched that they'd remember. And I'm not surprised by some of these. Twister, for example, was a huge thing. Twister was really, really popular. I know there's Twisters coming out, the sequel, but Twister was a huge tape. The 1999 version of Annie, someone's brought up. I think I would rather eat my own head. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that surprises me because I thought it would be, you know, Raiders or Temple. But Last Crusade was a big deal when it came out, and I remember it being talked about when it came out. I remember it as a kid when it came out, and it's like, this is the best one yet, it's the best one ever. And it's funny how these things change over time, how those opinions change over time. Aladdin, again with the Disney stuff. Summer Holiday, the Cliff Richard movie. Legends of the Fall, that was a big deal with Brad Pitt in it, yeah. This is an interesting piece because people are also talking about things recorded off the TV. Jurassic Park again. Let's see if there's anything else surprising here. Speed was great. And give Speed 2 another chance. Yes, it's crap, but just enjoy it for its crapness. Fair enough, that's an interesting one. So you can go and find that on Den of Geek. The piece is called What Was Your Most Watched VHS Tape? I think there's some nostalgia to be found in there. Now, this one was interesting, I thought. The last one I'm going to talk about on this episode is this one. The final 10 movies to be released on VHS. And I never knew this. I never knew what the last ones were. It never occurred to me to look it up. I knew what the last recorder was, which was made by Funai, which I have one of upstairs. But yeah, the final 10 movies to be released on VHS. So players ceased in 2006, but the last videotape movies to be released were these ones apparently, which I did not know. So it was History of Violence, Saw 2, Just Friends, Jarhead, The Ice Harvest, Yours, Mine and Ours, Pride and Prejudice, Domino, Doom, and The Legend of Zorro. What a mixed bag. It definitely, it didn't end with a bang. Everyone had moved on to DVD and we're looking at downloads. We've got the very, very early stages of downloads, you know, and movies by post had become a thing. And it did just kind of fade away. It faded away to nothing. And then it just turned to people like me to talk about it endlessly so it doesn't get forgotten about. So that's the last 10 movies ever released on VHS. And that's quite odd. I don't think I'd pick any of them up. I mean, I do enjoy some of those, but I don't think I would go out of my way to pick them up so I could have like the last ones ever made. It's an odd little poignant list. Very odd, very strange, but interesting. So do check it out. Look out for VHS news on the internet because there's still some interesting stuff being put out there. I've researched tons of it for VHS-themed too, so I do hope you enjoy reading that when that arrives. So please do like and subscribe if you like this sort of content. I really do appreciate every single one of you. I'm aiming for 500 followers by the end of the year. If you could get that, that would be lovely. And I think then I would have the impetus to carry this channel on because it's not always easy finding the time to make these things with life and full-time work and a writing career and all the other stuff. But I really enjoy doing this and I would like to carry it on. So if you get a few more followers, I'll do that. I think that'll be fun to do. So thank you for joining me for this episode of Planet Hex. Please do like and subscribe if you like this sort of thing, as I've already said. Damn it, I did the YouTube thing. And I'll see you next time for the next episode. Thanks ever so much.